This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Styles with a save. Chance for the second here. A classic counter-attack, and Gibbs White puts Nottingham Forest 2 ahead. Here's one. 1-0 Forest. Has made an even bigger difference there. Nottingham Forest have snatched the lead at Anfield.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Red Side of Trent as we come to you during the international break, eagerly awaiting England's fixture tomorrow. And still basking in a victory as Nottingham Forest finally got their second win of the season in the league at least, by beating Leeds 3-1. I'd like to be joined by Reiss, Lane and Alex Oakes. Reiss, firstly, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Good stuff. Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. You recovered from all the travelling from Graz last week?
Yeah, just about now, I think, yeah. But looking forward to the next one, which is obviously only in a month's time, isn't it? So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Alex, what about yourself? How are you doing?
Good, mate. It's nice to be going into an international break with a win. So, yeah, can't complain.
Well, it certainly is, yeah. Obviously, for this point, obviously, as an international break, obviously, you've covered the game, as we know, over the weekend. So I thought it would be good to sort of reflect do this, actually. It'd be quite cool to sort of do a little sort of early sort of grading, if you like, or analysis of our summer signings, which have had some mixed fortunes, I think it's fair to say. So I think we'll start from the back, I suppose. I've just got going through Reese's notes here. And we'll start with Big John, Reese's favourite goalkeeper. Big John signed for €8 million, Brazil international, played, or he's been called up at least. I think he's been called up again, actually, I think recently, because of him. I think there's another injury, so he's back in the squad, into the fold now. Played 2 games for Forest. Obviously, the intention was we signed him, he'd push sales all the way. I think it's still difficult to really gauge. I know, obviously, Reiss, you're not confident in him at all, but same clean sheets as sales this season, so that says a lot. What's your early thoughts on him, anyway?
I do feel a bit harsh because I always say you got to give players time. But what I've seen so far, the Swansea game especially, I don't think you're going to get him pushing sales personally. Sturm Graz was one of them. I think, with respect, any goalkeeper of any description we've had in the past would have probably kept a clean sheet against Sturm Graz. I'm even thinking the likes of your Barry Roaches and your Matt Turners and them type of goalkeepers. But obviously it's a clean sheet. I think he made a decent. Was it the second one? He made a decent save. I mean, I was at the other end, so yeah. But no, I don't see him pushing sales personally. I stick by what I said probably a few pods ago. I think it'll probably be another Miguel situation where I think he'll be quite frustrated that he hasn't broken into the side. So I can't see that happening. And then he'll want to play regular football. And I think he'll end up back in Brazil or probably in Europe. I actually looked at his career and actually didn't realise he'd been on loan at Valladolid a couple of seasons ago, which surprised me, in Spain. So he played a few times for them. So yes, especially if obviously it's the World Cup with Brazil as well, and they want to maybe get third choice in their squad, if that's a possibility. I'm not sure if everybody's fit, but yeah, I mean, Sells will go into his last year of his contract, won't he, next year? So, if everything goes to plan and we're still a Premier League club, I do think the club maybe will start looking for a proper succession plan for Sells personally in the summer. I think you'll probably see a lot of change in the summer, whatever, if we're still in the Premier League or whatever. I mean, I don't want to talk about God dropping down, but we'll talk positively. And if we are in the Premier League, I think there'll be a lot of change again, personally. So yeah. I mean, he's only played a couple of games, but I don't see him becoming a number 1 at Forest, personally.
Alex, what about yourself? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, that'd be FIFA Pro World 11 nominee, Big John, to you. No idea how he scammed his way into that. He's been okay, but like I'm in the same boat as Reiss. He doesn't exactly strike confidence into me. He parries balls away far too much into dangerous areas. We've seen that in the 2 games that he's played. I mean, like I say, he kept a clean sheet against Graz and got us a point away from home in the Europa League. So you can't use that as a stick to beat him with. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think the summer coming up, I think there'll be a real sort of manhunt from our recruitment team for a goalkeeper. Whether Miguel stays as number 2 or drops as number 3 for a year, or whether he just, like I say, goes back to Brazil. Anybody's guess, but yeah, I don't see him sticking around for too long.
Question for you, Christian. Sorry, just before we move on, do you think he starts against Malmo?
I think it's possible. I mean, I'm not. I know obviously Sales made a good save on Saturday against Leeds. Otherwise, didn't really have a lot to do. I'm still not entirely convinced he's out of the woods, to be honest, in terms of Forest. Obviously, again, you'd like to hope Sunday would have been a confidence boost for him. In that, obviously he couldn't do anything about the goal. There was nothing. Like, you can't blame the goalkeeper for that at all. But when he was called upon, he delivered. He'd surely take confidence from that. You'd like to think, but it's been a pretty torrid last few months for him, really, in terms of mistakes, things that could have very easily been prevented and haven't been. Last season you could probably say comfortably Sales would have gained Forest at least 10 points on his own. This season he's probably cost us about 4 or 5 points already. So it's difficult, isn't it? Really, I still think. I personally don't think we've seen enough of John to make a firm judgment. You could probably apply that to a lot of the new players we've got as we go on to in due course. But I think that one of the things that you used to defend Sales was that he was in an annual defence and therefore he's likely to make more mistakes. And yet we've written John off after the Swansea game where he had an annual defence. So you can't really have it both ways.
I just think with John though, when is he kind of going to get his time? Like,
well, there will be opportunities. There will be opportunities, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the cups, whether it's whenever else. Sales might get suspended or injured. We don't know. I still think he's on fit ice. Personally, I mean, obviously, you'd like to think Sunday's a big step in the right direction for him. It was a Sales from last year, it seemed, but I'm still not entirely convinced. We had this against Newcastle. Really, for me, I thought he was brilliant at Newcastle away, Sales, and then very quickly followed that up with Chelsea, which he was at fault for 2 goals for. So it's just we'll have to wait and see what happens in that one. But again, I'd like to see more of him before I sort of come to the conclusion. Yeah, sack him off. He's done. I do, however, like the idea of getting another goalkeeper in, probably a future one, a number 1 for next year. Ideally, someone a bit younger too, who could you could hold your hat on for a good 5-6 years at least. But obviously we'll see what recruitment say for that one. From one goalkeeper to another, though, Alex, and this one will be a very quick one, I'm sure. Angus Gunn, who we've seen maybe twice in training videos, was on the bench a few times this season, and has gone. Obviously, was in the media saying that he might need to leave to get first team football. I question why he would have signed for Forest anyway, thinking he was going to get first team football personally. But what are your sort of thoughts on him and that signing as a whole?
Yeah, when you mentioned that about when it come out about him wanting first team football, and then you followed it up with that comment, I was completely agree. He was never ever going to get first team football here. Gone down. Yeah, he was never going to get first team football here in the first place. So if he was wanting first team football, it's either a really poor career decision, or the wages that we've offered were considerably higher, which I imagine it probably was, than most other offers. And his sort of agents seen it as a bit of a payday. But yeah, so you can't really say anything. He's not played a minute. I'm sure he's a fine pair of hands, but it sort of is what it is with that situation. I expect him to leave either in January or the summer.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Reiss, do you see like a Hennessy replacement almost from Forest, and he just hasn't really accepted that?
Nah, I think he would have been given the impression personally that he would have come in as a number 2, and they actually probably would have played in the cups. I think that's what he means about game time. He's surely he's not going to be that much of stupidity thinking he's going to take over a Ballon d'Or nominee. I think he would have been come in at the time as a number 2, thinking, I'll probably play in the League Cup, the FA Cup. If Forest obviously do well in Europa League and have qualified, probably last couple of games in Europe, then late on in the window we brought John Victor, so it's probably peed him off, to be honest, because as well he's another one who, he's got aspirations. I'm not going to laugh too much of going to the World Cup with Scotland. I think he's their number 1. I know he's injured now, but I think he's their number 1, isn't he? So
he is.
He wouldn't want another keeper to come along who's playing, say, in the SPL, for example, and take his spot. But I do agree with Alex. I think he's probably going to go in January, isn't he? But I think he only got a year deal, was it? So he's probably going to be going loan to somebody, maybe in the Championship, who need a goalkeeper, or even in the SPL, really. So because he's not. Is he in any of the squads? He's not in Europa squad, is he? Don't think.
No, he's
in
not.
The Prem squad?
I think he'll be in the Prem squad.
He's in the Prem squad, but not Europa. But he's not going to play in the Prem, is he? Because he's third choice unless we have a crisis. So I think that's probably what will happen in January. Loan to a champ move or an SPL, and we'll probably never see him play for Forest.
Another one to the list with Giles Texera and a few others. But next up we have more brighter ones. Nicola Savona, who signed for about 13 million euros. Obviously been playing right back. Was prior to signing for Forest, obviously played 30 games for Juventus. Was called up to the Italy national fold, but never actually played for them yet. But so far, I mean, I know obviously he looks a bit ropey on the range, Reiss, but last few games, I think Savona's really sort of looks pretty dependable. And if we're in a case again where Aina gets injured, I feel like a pretty safe pair of hands there.
Yeah, I think he's. I think he has grown in these appearances. He seems to be enjoying life in Nottingham. I've seen him put a post out, the club put a post out, like he's settled here, which coming from Italy must be tough, I must say. I think the Man U game was no doubt his best game. Like I did say in that game, when he's against an out-and-out real winger, it will be tougher for him. It's probably when he's going to need support from his winger. I think he's made a decent start to his Forest career. When Olaran is fit, there's no doubt he's number 1 right back, and there's probably still a few question marks whether he's an actual out-and-out full back or, his best, is one spot in the back 3. But I guess with him still being a young lad, it's early days, and there'll still be, times when, as time goes on, we'll probably get more knowledge about Savona. But I think he's done okay so far, personally, and obviously got himself off the mark with a goal.
Yeah, against United as well, no doubt as well. Alex, obviously, we all sort of forget that, given his sort of exuberance and everything else, that Aina is actually very fast approaching 30. He's 29 now. Would you be pretty comfortable with Savona being a long-term successor for him, or?
Ooh, that's a question. I mean, on the trajectory of improvement, yeah. Well, I don't see why not. I mean, what is he? 22, 23. He's come over from a big side in Italy. Arguably the biggest side in Italy. And I mean, he's sort of been gifted an opportunity to sort of show what he can do just from Aina's injury. He's sort of been thrown in at the deep end, and he's looked ropey at times. There was the awkward back pass that led to Leeds' goal on Saturday or Sunday. But yeah, no, I think he's okay. I think he's on a pretty slow linear chart at the minute. I think he's improving well, and yeah, I don't mind him, and yeah, I don't see why not.
I think when we signed, one of the things I wanted in the summer personally, I think I wanted almost from reversal, like an older-ish left back, because obviously Williams is in his prime, so he's sort of like, if he gets injured or suspended, you want someone dependable to sort of come in. there's no point bringing in a prodigy because he's got that shirt for years, unless we sell him, of course, which hopefully we won't do anytime soon. But for right back, I wanted a younger right back to sort of eventually grow into the anal-shaped hole that will eventually appear because of his age. And I'm hopeful from what I've seen so far. I think he's looked good. Again, the Yang system was a bit of a debacle for most defenders, really, apart from Morato. So it's very difficult to sort of read anything to that. But since Deitch has come in, he's looked a lot better, I think. So,
can I just add? I know we've spoke about this quite a lot on the pod, but I think we all prefer Nico as a left back to a right back. But obviously, with Aina, going into his 30s and stuff, would a long-term succession plan maybe be for Nico to go back to right back and then the left back be an actual left footer? Because that is something I know fans have mentioned about, sometimes you've not got that balance, have you, in terms of when you're crossing the ball? Just thinking.
I did have those thoughts when Alex Moreno came in. I thought that was a great signing because it had that balance. But again, I think Nico's good enough on his left foot to give us the balance that we sort of need. He was whipping in crosses on against Leeds that we're causing all sorts of issues with his left and right. Whether he cuts back and takes the ball off Callum and then whips an in swinger, or he can put sort of a flat ball across with his left foot. Like I said, I think we've tried the left footer, but it could go either way. But like Christian said, I think Williams that's his shirt for many, many years to come, barring any disasters with him. But yeah,
it's strange to see someone on their weaker foot be so stronger in that position, if that makes sense, because it's very Dennis Irwin vibes, as we said before, with him at left back. But it's just like I said before, it's so strange how he has looked better at right back this season, have to say, we did fill in, but there still is that sort of lingering risk that a diagonal ball might catch him out. But at left back, you put your hat on him every time. He's going to give you 7 out of 10 as a minimum every game.
Aina's going to be the right back for the next few years anyway. I know he's going into 30, but we've got Woody last season, Sells who are into their 30s and performing as best as they've ever done in their career. So yeah, it's just good that you've got Savona who can come in, and if Aina was to get an injury, he can come in and slip in and obviously look good enough to be competitive in the Prem.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, I'm going to give you Alexander Zinchenko, who we got on loan from Arsenal. I feel like I'm sort of picking on you a bit here. But
yeah, have I got to? I wasn't enamoured with the signing when we made it. I did question sort of why his profile. I mean, we knew what we were going to get because we were typically a sort of mid to low block team last season. And we've signed a left back that can't defend and can't run. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And then chucking him into an inverted spot under Ange where he's playing half his time at striker, and then we just get absolutely battered with right wingers. It's just, for me, it's been a complete waste of time. I couldn't tell you one positive moment other than a shot on target away at Burnley that he's sort of given us. It's one of the more baffling signings I think in the summer. I'd rather have seen that Javi Galan come in, but I think Zinchenko was a sort of a trademark Edu signing. Again, I don't know that, I'm speculating, but sort of all signs point to that. And yeah, for me, it just wasn't great business because I imagine he's not going to be on a small amount of wages either that we'd be covering.
No, it's a fair point. That is especially a fair point. He won't be cheap. Reiss, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, the one moment you could probably point to, I think he was massively involved in one of the build-ups to the Betis goal where the actual inverted fullback worked, didn't it? Because I don't think they was really struggling to pick him up, Betis. But no, I agree with Alex. It's not really worked. He's just not quick enough. I've said this on pod before. He's just not quick enough to get up and down. Nico, I wouldn't say he's very quick, but he can get up and down. Zinchenko just can't, can he? And he's obviously injured now. I'd probably send him back in January, mate, personally. Galan would have been an interesting one because coming from Atletico Madrid, you'd think he'd actually want to play. And he's probably not. He wouldn't have dislodged Nico as it stands, but that would have been interesting if he wanted to come to Forest. But I did see that AC Milan earlier on Twitter were willing to let Estepinian go, someone we'd looked at before. So maybe is that someone we could maybe look at on loan to come in?
Well, Lonnie's on the free.
He didn't want to stay in Nottingham, though, did he?
He might now. You never know. He might come back.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's. I did like Loddy, but I think that's been and gone personally. I just think. I think it'd be nice to look at probably a young and up and coming left-footed left back, which I think we're going to come on to. So I'm not going to steal the thunder on that, but if it was up to me, I'd probably send Zinchenko back in January personally, and agree with Alex. That was clearly a last-minute Edu deal, wasn't it? It adds up. But I mean, I come home from Football Trade and Emma was like, "Oh, we'll sign Zinchenko," and I was like, "What?" I mean, because it just come out of left field, didn't it? But I just don't think he's the profile for what we need, really, Zinchenko.
No, I agree with that. I wasn't overly enamored from the start just because of how badly defensive he was. I mean, I get that Tessa Pulis is a thing, but equally understand that he realises that a defence will win a title, and he looked at Zinchenko very quickly and went, absolutely not. As soon as he sort of served his purpose in getting Arsenal into a top 4 team, and once he sort of went away into that sort of more defensive style, he very quickly realised Zinchenko wasn't going to be it. So why Forest, who their bedrock of last season was being a defensive team because spring on a counter, signing Zinchenko was absolutely ridiculous. But I was willing to sort of see what happened. It just hasn't. I agree. If he went back in January, I wouldn't be upset. And also speaking of January, it would potentially give Cuibano a go, who's back on loan at Botafogo. My only concern with him is obviously he hasn't played yet. He's played 12 games this season for Botafogo. I think Nathan's said before he's potentially better bombing forwards, so in true Brazilian left-back style. But how do you sort of see that one going? Because I mean, it looked like the early reports were that Brighton obviously were very, very hot on him, as they were Valentin Barco, that's funny enough. But Brighton's plan was to loan him out to the Championship. So do you think he'd even be ready for Forest if he was to come back in January?
I think as a backup, because you're not going to dislodge Nico Williams because as it stands, he's player of the season, isn't he? I know the bar's low, but Nico Williams is consistently good for Nottingham Forest. 7 out of 10 every week at a minimum. Very rarely makes mistakes now. He's at left back. I actually thought on Sunday it's probably one of his not so good games, but you still see all the endeavour, you still see all the effort. So he's just not going to get dislodged. So to have someone who's going to come in as a young lad who obviously can get forward as well, is he left-footed Cubano?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would make sense personally. And send Zinchenko back. I think there's no point in signing another young left back, is there? When we've got one, if you spent some money on him, if Brighton were looking at him, he must have something about him. He's played 12 games since we've signed him, so I think he's played like 23 overall for Botafogo this season. When I looked at the stats, so I think that one would make sense personally for him to come in as the backup and Zinchenko to go back to Arsenal.
I wouldn't be against that. Alex, what about yourself?
I've seen him a couple of times. Like when you one of those things at 10:30 at night when the Brazilian league kicks off and I'm not doing anything, I'll find a completely legal stream, and it was mainly when Jesus and that were playing, and we were sort of really on that. And yeah, a couple of sub appearances I saw, he was brought on at left wing. So that, like Nathan knows way more than sort of any of us about South American football, but all signs point to him being completely correct about that. But yeah, I mean, like Reiss said, what's the point in spending more money on another young left back when we've got one that Sean Dyche can start to mould up until the summer and possibly beyond. You just don't know what you're going to get for him.
No, that's fair enough. I'll be keen to see. I'll be very keen to see, obviously, the decision for a club to make in January. So, very intrigued by that one. Next up, I'm going to go stick with you, Alex. Give you Jay Cunha, his Botafogo former teammate. Obviously, 2 appearances for Forest so far. Looked pretty good at Newcastle, I have to say. Sort of thrown into the Wolves that game as well, but actually came out pretty okay. Swansea obviously played as well, which was an interesting cameo. Obviously, given his 70 yards dart up the field. Which of course then led to one of their goals, unfortunately. But in the very small sample size that you've seen from him, what have you made from him so far? And do you think there's a future for him at Forest?
Yeah, absolutely. I from what I've seen of him, sort of in the limited minutes, I really like the look of him. Against Newcastle, that's sort of one of the most imposing places in the Premier League you can go away from home. St James's Park's never an easy game for most teams. And he looked comfortable for all of an hour. It was never really. I mean, he just looked as solid as the other two who'd been playing in the Premier League for a couple of years now. The only issue I would have with him is just his route into the first team looks pretty blocked up at the minute because he can't get minutes over Morato coming on. And then, but again, I think that's more to do with the fact Morato's left-footed. And yeah, you're not going to dislodge Milenkovic or Murillo for a first team spot unless there is an injury. So it might just be one of those cases of sort of sitting on his hands and waiting for the opportunity. But yeah, if he was, Milenkovic was ruled out for 3 months tomorrow, I'd have no qualms with Cunha playing. And yeah, having Murillo and Joe Cunha as a pair.
Reiss?
Yeah, I agree with Alex. His route to the first team at the minute, if Milenkovic and Murillo are fit every week, they're going to play, aren't they? That's the issue. He's kind of relying on an injury, really. Morato is obviously third choice. I think Cunha would be fourth. Willy Bolly's going to go in the summer. It's the same for Zach Abbott as well. I know Abbott's, it's because of the homegrown thing, isn't it? But they probably both need to go and play some football on loan somewhere because they're just. When are they really going to play for Forest? Cunha's not in the Europa League squad, so he's not going to play in them. Yeah, he'll probably play in the FA Cup. Abbott, got a few minutes against Graz, didn't he? Again, he might play in the FA Cup, but yeah, I just feel like I'm always an advocate of going on loan, but obviously the right loan. That's something Forest have been kind of mixed, I'd say, over the last few years. But yeah, as it stands, I like to look at him as well. I thought he did well at Newcastle, fine against Swansea. He's probably at some point going to take over from Murillo. But I do think that Gibbs White and probably Anderson will go this summer. So I can't see Forest sanctioning a Murillo sale as well because he's under a long contract. Whereas I know Anderson will be the same, but there's going to be a bidding war for him, in my opinion, if he has a good World Cup. So yeah, but I think a low move for him would be decent if it's the right loan. I don't know if he could maybe go to Rio Ave on loan or we see him at a higher level. Could you see him in loan in the Championship on loan?
Probably,
I mean, because we've got Bindon as well, who's looks a perfect loan for him. Because obviously linking up with Sellers, I know it was Sheffield United. That's obviously been a disaster. I watched him a few times and he looked quite poor, to be honest. And Reading fans are raving about him. I don't know whether that's just because of the mess Sheffield United was in. So we're going to have to reassess a loan for him. So we've actually got 3 young centre backs, haven't we? Really. Who all need game time, and it's like, and then it comes to a point as well where you're thinking, well, we've got 2 senior centre backs plus Morato. I know some fans are not keen about him, so yeah, he could maybe move on, but he's not very old as well. I think he's 23. It gets to a point where you're like, you kind of have to let them move on for their own good. You know what I mean? I mean, at the minute, I'd say out of them 3, Cunha, Bindon and Abbott, I'd say Cunha's number 1 personally. Probably Abbott number 2, Bindon number 3, because we haven't seen Bindon for Forest.
Yeah.
But there does come a point where players do have to move on. And with us just signing Kuhn, I'm probably more thinking towards Abbott, really. When is he going to kind of get the game time for Forest? That's the issue. And Kuhn are the same. So, but yeah, I think if we can maybe sort a loan out for Kuhn in January, I think that would be a good move personally.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that one, I think. I'm also intrigued. Big if Forest do get out of the Europa League group phase, which you'd like to hope they do. You're allowed three. You're allowed 3 changes, aren't you? Yeah, I know, but it's Forest, so not finishing the playoffs when you had a 6-goal swing on a final day of the season was a disgrace, but we managed to do it. So, not finishing the top 5 last year, despite being 8 points clear, whatever it was, with 8 games to go, was a disgrace. But it's Forest, so I wouldn't rule anything out. But if we are to go through, you get 3 changes, don't you? I'm not entirely sure if Zinchenko counts as change because it was an injury change. But you think Aina comes back, then who's does Hutchinson come in? Does Kouabalo come in? Does Konya come in?
Yeah.
No, but obviously you assume Body comes out.
Yeah.
Because that was
Zinchenko will drop out.
Yeah, Zinchenko and Body.
And then you've also got to think as well if obviously how things are at the minute if Tyro's going to come in.
Well, yeah,
because he's ahead of Callum Mwendo in the league.
Yeah.
So
to be fair, because if the rumours are true, Callum Mwendo looks like he's probably going to leave in January on loan somewhere. So yeah, I mean that's sort of like for like him and Taiwo, and then I imagine if Hutchinson carries on the way he is, I imagine he'll come in January as well.
You're gonna have 3, remember? So you still got
yeah.
The other. So you haven't got a left back in Kouabalo because he won't be in it because Zinchenko's out.
Well, the thing is, Aina and Nico can both play both sides, can't they? So
yeah, it's going to be there's going to be some big decisions to be made there. I don't envy to indict that one at all. But moving on to midfield and give you Reiss Douglas Luiz, who obviously got a clause to buy for him, about 25 million. It's so frustrating because when he's played, he's been brilliant. Like even when he wasn't fit, you could clearly tell the talent he had and how he operated. The first half against Betis, for example, only lasted 45 minutes in that one. But that's the issue, isn't it? He just can't seem. I don't know if it's because he hasn't had a pre-season. I know he was at the Club World Cup. I don't know if it's because of his previous injury history, but for whatever reason, Forest can't seem to keep him fit for very long. And do you even think he'll play enough games to activate the clause in his contract at this rate?
I mean, I hope so, in the sense that I don't want him to just scrape the barrel and get them games because then there's no point signing them for me. Because if he's going to play, say, 2 games, then get injured, play a few more games, then get injured, and that's a repeated process, then no, I really like Douglas Luiz, but that's not good for us. We need players who are going to be able to play, the majority of the season. If Forest have got, let's say we've got 55 games this season, you want him to be playing around 40, at least, really, not be playing 25. So, look, I've loved what I've seen from Luiz so far, but then he's got injured again. The issue for us, as you've seen with Isak at Liverpool, who's a lot more expensive player than Luiz, that pre-season is kind of hampering him. He's probably not up to speed in terms of his fitness. That's probably why he's breaking down. He's obviously he's had the issue, with, is it like a muscle thing, wasn't it? Similar to what Lolly had, wasn't it? Where it was like an underlying issue as well. I've seen on Twitter. So Luiz will be proof in the pudding, mate. I mean, no doubt he's a classy operator, but we need him to play the games. If he don't, then it's going to be one of them. We kind of be disappointed it's not worked out. But I hope it does. I hope he can come back when he does in the near future, hopefully, and string along, a lot of successive games, because there's no doubt for me he's his second best centre mid. Sangari, Dominguez, and Yates, he's better than them 3, as much as I like them 3. I mean, him and Anderson, I think, are probably, especially Anderson, are probably that next level above. And you kind of look him for his experience of what like Granit Xhaka's gone into Sunderland and dare I say it, Henderson into Brentford. He's a very experienced operator, isn't he? So I hope he can get fit, mate. But if he can't and it's kind of blibs and blobs, then it'll be one of them. We'll look back on and be disappointed, but we can't be forking out 30 million for someone who isn't fit enough.
Alex, what about you? Especially in the instance that Anderson is probably primed to leave in the summer. I think that's a pretty realistic expectation, and Louise could very feasibly come in to replace him if he's fit, of course. But again, how do you sort of see things?
Yeah, I think Reiss hit nail on the head. I think the best ability is availability, and currently we're not seeing that from him. As classy as he is, technically he's probably one of the best footballers I've seen at Forest. He's every time he gets the ball, every time he picks up in midfield, you just think there's something going to happen. He's going to beat a man. He's going to put someone in. But we're just not seeing it enough. I just hope that the injury team and Deitch himself are smart enough to make sure he's 100% before he actually plays. Because there's no point, as Reiss said, having him in 2 games and playing really well, looking brilliant, having a great partnership with Anderson for the next 5 games, it's going to be Sangare or Yates or Dominguez, and it's balance of the team wise. It's not healthy for the team. Chopping and changing all the time. As good as he is, but like Reiss said, I think we're going to play sort of 55 to 60 games this season. You want him playing 38 to 45. You want him playing most weeks in the Premier League. There's the odd European game and cup game and stuff. He probably won't need to play. But yeah, best ability is availability, and currently we're not seeing that from him.
Yeah, it's a real shame because, we saw it against Porto how classy he can be and how such a good player he is. It's just hopefully we can find a way to keep him fit. It is tough when you've got we're not in a pre-season. We saw that before. We saw that with when 23-24 season, when we got a load of players on deadline day there, and then some of them clearly weren't fit. Like Hudson-Odoi, for example, broke down very quickly after signing because he didn't have the games. The pre-season at Chelsea, was training on his own. It's tough. I think people underestimate just how physically tough the Premier League can be at times, and if you're not prepared for it, it will catch up with you one way or the other. But hopefully Deitch can figure out a way to sort it out, because I'd love to see more of him in a Forest shirt. Such a good player to watch. Another one I'm going to give you, Alex, is James McAtee, who again signed for about £25 million. But the big question is whether he's actually fit enough. From what you've seen so far, what have you sort of made of him, and how do you sort of see things going from the Forest?
Again, this was another one I wasn't, when we were linked, I wasn't massively hot on, just purely because if you put any of our players into that Man City side, they will look sort of infinitely better than what they do in a Forest side. So it was sort of reversing the roles for McAtee coming into us. I think it's a big price tag, don't get me wrong, sort of 35 million quid. It's hard to say because we haven't seen him probably as much as we either should have or would have wanted to. Because Gibbs, he plays in Gibbs White's position. There's not much point playing him out on the right wing when, again, we've got Backward there, Hutchinson over there. I haven't seen enough of him in a Forest shirt to really judge properly sort of how he's done or how he's going to get on. For our sake and his sake, I hope he starts to pick up some performances. And we've seen players that haven't been getting the minutes, like Hutchinson at the weekend, come on and made an immediate impact. Maybe McAtee just needs a half an hour spell like that, something to go his way, and he really kicks on and starts firing. But it's sort of one of the lower rated signings, I think, currently, but we just haven't seen him enough.
Reiss, quick question for you. I like you. I expect Gibbs White to go in summer. If he is to go, would you feel comfortable with McAtee being his replacement? from what you've seen so far?
Well, like Alex said, we've not seen much at all. And to be fair, in that short space of time, I've not really seen any indication as well. I won't say it's a concern, but yeah, I've just not seen enough of him, have we? I mean, God, how many minutes has he played? Has he played a full 90 minutes yet? Was it Swansea in the Cup, maybe? He didn't? No. So, I mean, it's hard to make a judgment, isn't it? It's a tough one. And obviously there was rumours about him going on loan as well to Germany, wasn't he? I mean, he was linked with German clubs when we signed him. And I think he'll be a little bit disappointed, because if he had shown in the small chunks of time he has played something, he probably would have got a start, because Gibbs White before, since really Dyche has come in, has been struggling a bit, hasn't he? And there's been a lot of calls from fans, for him to be took out of the team. But my question to that has always been, well, who for McAtee? But we've not seen anything from him as well. Hence why probably Gibbs White stayed in the side, and now he scored 2 goals in his last 2 Prem games, for example. So, I mean, why? Hopefully Gibbs White picks up form, and if Gibbs White does pick up form, then he's going to play. And then it's going to be hard for McAtee to get in. And like Alex said, he's not a winger, is he? You're just shoehorning him in there, really. So again, it's just game time, really. I mean, I did think he probably would be the heir to kind of Gibbs White throne, in the sense that he's a number 10. But to be fair, if Gibbs White does go in the summer, probably see us going more towards a 4-3-3, mate, to be honest, and just sacking this 10 off, because it does hamper you at times in terms of, you've got to kind of play Gibbs White in most games, haven't you? Because he's his talisman when he's on it, and it's like, well, do we play him in a 3? But his best position's a number 10 in it. So, yeah, it'd be interesting in what happens with McAtee, but hopefully we'll see some more of him. Against Malmo, I'd hope he'd start. And probably against Utrecht as well. But not really seen enough of him yet. But what I have seen so far, there's been nothing ready to go off, I'd say, personally.
Yeah, it's just a fitness thing for me. I mean, and that's not necessarily McAtee's fault either, because I mean, as Dyche said after the Graz game, he's kept himself in good shape. It's just not match fitness. And I mean, okay, questions have to be asked about why that's the case, but
yeah, I just find that, because surely he would have been training with City, wouldn't he, and doing pre-season with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you get it's more match sharpness, I'd say, playing games, and your fitness. Players should be fit. They might be, towards the end of the game, they might be looking a bit leggy, but it's more your sharpness and that, isn't it? I am a bit disappointed that we've got players pulling up with cramp and that, really. They should still be fit, shouldn't they? I just find that a bit weird, personally. And what has actually gone on under that.
Oh, yeah, this is it. I'm sure that the lid will get lifted one day. We'll find out, but Jesus Christ. Next one, Reiss, Dylan Bakwa. Came with a lot of fanfare, signed for about 30 million or so. Obviously got an injury in a minute. Started to look very bright against Swansea and Arsenal, to be fair, but since turned off quite drastically. Again, whether that's down to the manager or whatever else, because that's also very feasible. What have you thought so far? I'm hopeful that he'll be fit for the Europa games, hopefully against Malmo, especially in Utrecht. Again, just give a bit more flexibility to the players that we've got. But what do you make of what you've seen so far?
What is it? Has it been said what his injury actually is? Or
no,
is
it's just injured, just out. I mean, it was good to see him at touchline, to be fair, at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if he comes back fit and he's going to be in and around the squad, isn't he? I thought the first few glimpses we saw of him looked positive. Obviously, then everything under Ange went downhill pretty quickly, and then obviously under Sean Dyche, he's been injured. So he's someone who apparently the club wanted for a couple of years. So he's going to be a long-term player, isn't he? Let's be honest, he's going to be a long-term signing for the club unless he's an absolute disaster. Similar to Ndoi, over his he's got a 5-year contract, you're probably going to look to see him build over, his contract, like probably what Alanga did, didn't he? What did Alanga get first season? Goals and assists. He improved on it in the second season. And, you're looking for that kind of gradual improvement as you go on. So, yeah, again, not seeing much of backward, but we've got to see more of him. I think he's definitely a long-term player for the club, personally.
I feel inclined to agree with that. Alex, what yourself?
Yeah, I think we've seen a bit more of him than the likes of McAtee. Sort of to sort of know what he's going to be about. Yeah, he's shown good moments. Yeah, Swansea, Arsenal, Burnley, but he's another one. I completely agree with Reiss. He was signed with a long-term vision in mind and sort of us going forward. Yeah, I don't see there's no reason why he can't succeed here. He's got the tools to do it. It's just where game time comes from, because if he's going to get himself back up to full fitness, is Ndoye considered a right winger under Dyche, or is he going to play back up to Hudson-Odoi and then Hutchinson's going to start on the right from now on? It's sort of all up in the air, but he's got a bit of work to put in, I think, to start getting regular game time again.
Definitely, yeah. So speaking of Dan Ndoye, actually, we'll stick with you on that. Alex, I think we've seen gradual improvement week on week. It's been quite pleasing to sort of see his development, actually, because I remember at Brentford's and even Palace, I know he got his goal and assist in those games, but you can see like how he was still obviously used to having more time on the ball, like in Italy, for example, and how the physicality really seemed to take him by surprise. But that seemingly changed over the last few weeks. He seems to be a bit more aggressive. He seems to do a lot more. How have you found him so far? Do you still think there's more we can sort of extract from him?
Yeah, I think he's had a good start. Yeah, he's scored a couple of goals. He's got a couple of assists under his name. Don't get me wrong. There are things in his game that really need cutting out, because the last couple of weeks it's been around sort of 65, 70 minutes. He's tried to turn into three opposition players on the corner of our own box, and he's given it away 3 or 4 times. That really needs cutting out. But again, that will come with experience. He's not old by any stretch. But we sort of have a running gag with the people around us that he's the most Brennan Johnson player since Brennan Johnson. That he won't do anything for 80 minutes, and then all of a sudden he'll pick up a goal or an assist out of absolutely nothing. But yeah, I think there's more to come from him. But I'm pleased, and I think he's been one of our better signings from the summer. But again, I think that's purely to do with how much he's played. He's played probably the most minutes out of any summer signing, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're having this conversation about how he's done fairly well in the time we've seen him, because he's played the most. But yeah, the absolute player there. I think can always improve, but yeah, solid start.
Reiss, what about yourself? Obviously, that winger hierarchy is quite an interesting one, but
yeah, this is what we want as fans in the summer. You'd have probably said before Sunday that Hutchinson was the bottom of that pecking order, and now he's had one good game and he's come in. You're thinking, well, he's going to start. I mean, if it wasn't Liverpool away, where you're going to probably have to tactically tweak things. Say if we've got a normal game in terms of, let's say it's Brighton next, you probably think, yeah, we'll start him that game. So it can change. It can change very quickly. I'd say Ndoye's done okay. In moments, I think you can clearly see he's got quality. Obviously the goal he scored against Brentford, the assist at Palace, the ball in on Sunday, into a good area. I think, was it the shot against Manchester United when he stung Lammer's hands, and you're thinking, God, he got some proper power behind that. You know what I mean? He doesn't. And then sometimes he just doesn't show much at all, and then sometimes he does look a bit weak. Obviously, physicality-wise, coming from Italy, Premier League's a lot more physical, in my opinion. I do agree with Alex. I do get understand the Brennan Johnson comparison. What I would say is just Brennan just had that lightning speed, didn't he? Ndoye's quick, but not Johnson. And then you're looking at next level Langer quick, aren't you? Who's like, Olympic sprinter quick. So So look, he's just going to be another one. He's just going to probably have to build over his Forest career. It's not going to just be you chuck him in and everything's. He's going to start banging in goals and assists every single week. That's why I said in the summer it's going to be really hard to replace Elanga with the contributions he made, especially when you're spreading it across 4 wingers rather than 2 predominantly main ones. So again, yeah, I think he's been okay. Hopefully we get to see more and more of him, and he grows as he plays more in the Premier League, really. So I would have liked to see him come on earlier against Graz and put him on that left side, as I've mentioned. I think him and Nico would have hammered them down that left, and we would have won the game personally. But I get Dyche's thoughts because the bigger game was the Leeds game. He saved him for that more, and we won the game, which we all know we wanted more. So yeah, but it gives competition for placement, and we said at the start of the season that's what we all wanted, because last season it was Elanga and Hudson-Odoi. Nuno clearly didn't fancy Sousa, and Jota was very, very hit and miss in terms of his application. So yeah, it'd be interesting. I think you'll probably get a pecking order change probably most weeks, really, with the wingers, personally.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Obviously, offers something very different, which tactical versatility. But yeah, I'm pleased with Doy. I think that I think there's a lot there. If once he gets a regular sort of rhythm going, I think it'd be very interesting to see what you can do for us in the long term. But speaking of long term, obviously I'm going to give you Amari Hutchinson, Reiss, who's heroics at the weekend, obviously rescued us a win. Which, again, talk about how very quickly things can change in football.
Yeah.
1 minute you're saying to us, I imagine Hutchinson's going to go on loan, and 90 minutes later it's like maybe he starts the next game. How do you sort of see things now?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I actually thought he'd start on Sunday. I keep having to think because of what days the bloody games are. I thought he would have started, and I was disappointed not to see him start. And then you're kind of thinking, well, if he's playing Dominguez ahead of him, who, as much as I like Nico Dominguez, I prefer an out-and-out winger in that formation, especially against teams who you're looking to get on the front foot again, like Leeds and Sturm Graz, personally. I'd understand it more if we was playing Liverpool, Dominguez is slotted in as an inside midfielder to, make us more stronger in the middle. But he come on and he was brilliant. So I'm hoping that's kickstarted his career with Forest, because I was, as you say, concerned that he was going to get to January. He's not playing. He's not in the Europa League squad, which was a shocking decision in my opinion. And he's just frustrated, and he's like going to be saying to his agent, old Kia, look, I want to go out on loan and play some games. So hopefully that's turned the page for him, and I'm hoping we see similar for the likes of McAtee, for the likes of Bakwa. In Doy, like Alex said, he's playing quite a lot for the likes of Callum Mwenda. You're just looking for something to kind of kickstart the career, really. And Hutchinson definitely did that on Sunday. So I'm not sure if he'll play at Anfield from the start. I'd actually be quite surprised if he does. But, probably next, I was going to say Malmo then. Next league home game against Brighton, you think, I can see him starting in that one.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Alex, what do you think of him so far? I mean, what I love about Hutchinson is just how direct he is. Even amidst we've seen Sunderland, Swansea, and obviously Leeds as well, just shows no fear running at his fullback whatsoever. Just always wants to take and want to get by. It's just so good as a fan to watch, I think. But what's your take on him so far?
Yeah, I was a little bit baffled he didn't play the game after the Sunderland game, because he came on and really looked our only real threat that day. He's got a real sort of quality cross into the box as we saw on Sunday, and again against Sunderland, he found a Forest head 2 or 3 times with a ball into the box. You two will remember last season. I liken the Hutchinson situation to when Elanga was taken out the team last year, brought on against Villa after a little bit of time out, got a couple of goal contributions, and then really pushed on from there. Obviously, it's slightly different because Elanga was taken out for a dip in form and whatnot. But you just hope that Hutchinson takes Sunday as a real kickstart for his Forest career and doesn't look back, because I think he's definitely got ability. And like you say, I think the most pleasing thing is he's no slouch with pace wise, and he's extremely direct. He's not afraid to go to cut inside on his left, or as we saw for winning the penalty, go on the outside on his right. And I think that's a brilliant quality for any winger to have in the Premier League, and it's only a positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. Very exciting one to watch there. Only 2 more to go. We'll start with Alex. Sorry, I'll give you Kali Mwendo, who, again, Dyche is obviously clearly think he's fit enough. I struggle to see how he's going to fit in a Dyche system, I'm being perfectly honest, especially like I think Reiss alluded to earlier. Tyro's obviously usurped him, it seems, in a pecking order. The way we're playing at the minute is never going to benefit a smaller forwards. But, it's difficult. I mean, last year he got, 17, 18 goals in Liga, and his total record in Liga is 1 in 3. So it's 53 goals and 153 apps in the last 5 seasons, which is very impressive. Do you think that there's still scope for him at Forest, or do you think that, it's not looking good? And regardless, what have you made of him so far in his profile?
I think I was dreading getting this one first, because I personally I want him to do so well, because I've signed him on FM. He's my go-to striker for the last probably 3 games. So I was buzzing when we signed him. But it's really difficult, because he's had semi-decent moments against Swansea and whatnot, and then he's had complete sort of anonymous games against Graz. But again, they're different systems, different players around them, different management. Don't get me wrong, I think it'd be poor to write him off completely. He's only 23, I think 22, 23. It's difficult. I've got hope for him, but going on the trend of sort of the substitutions we've seen, I think Taiwo's in front of him currently, and we've got four strikers on the books, and when Chris Wood's back, everyone knows sort of the link between Chris Wood and Dyche, and not only that, Wood's been Forest's talisman for the past sort of 18 months, 2 years, and undroppable most of the time. But yeah, I think he's 4th choice, and possibly a loan move in January to Stuttgart, where he's linked to, could do him the world of good. He may come back and be a different player. You don't know, but is he match fit? Who knows? But pulling up after 60, 65 minutes with cramp isn't a great look for any Premier League player, sort of, no matter how much you've played, especially when the game's sort of as tepid and as slow pace as it was. It's not like it was complete balls to the walls performance and it was complete rock and roll football. I'm holding hope, but overall, it's been a slight disappointment for me.
Yeah, I felt really bad for McGrath, because he's got no service whatsoever, and the one time he did, like I think you could see the lack of confidence there, because he probably should have shot, but then instead tried this really weird ball for McAtee, which he was never likely to get to or do well with, and it's like obviously he got a bit unlucky in the second half where he did actually finally play him in, but obviously the shot was blocked. But Reiss, what about you? What do you reckon of his chances so far, and how have you sort of found them?
Yeah, it's not ideal. Obviously, that is pulling up with cramp after an hour or so. I am a little bit worried for him, in the sense that he's kind of just been caught in the crossfire of all this mess this season, really. And now he's got to a point where he might not fit the manager's ethos, in Sean Dyche's ethos of what he wants a striker to be. Obviously, Jesus, Taiwo and Wood all kind of do fit that. I mean, and Danny Tring won't be happy I've said this, but to fell behind Taiwo kind of says a lot to me, because I thought Taiwo came on and did all right on Sunday as a battering ram, but he ain't going to score goals, mate, Taiwo, and I've said that before. So to have fallen behind him kind of says a lot, really. I actually felt for him at Graz, because me and you was there, Christian. he asked several times for the ball to be slipped in behind in the channels, and we just didn't play it, and we booted it up to him. And with respect, what is he? 5'10"? Is he even that tall?
Yeah.
And obviously, me myself, as as someone who's 6'4", if someone's booting the ball up to someone who's against you who's 5'10", you just lean over the top of him and you nudge him because you've got the height on him. And if it bounces high like it was, you just lean over the top of him and head it, because you're taller than them. So they want it into channels and in the feet so they can do you for pace. And just didn't really give him that. And then he's obviously not getting any minutes at all against Leeds. I mean, I can't remember last time he's had minutes in the Premier League, really. Not on the darts he's had any minutes, has he? In the
He
Premier,
got 1 minute against.
Jesus, yeah, I said minutes.
Yeah.
So, 1 minute. I mean,
he's
still only had one start, hasn't he, lad? So I feel for him, mate. I actually thought some of the stuff I read online was way, way over the top.
Oh, massively. Yeah.
We're writing a player off after one star. A lad who's, like you say, scored 50-odd goals in the last 5 seasons, 1 in 3 in France, up-and-coming striker. He's played 1 star. We're writing him off after 1 star. I don't know whether that's because people have got a bee in the bonnet with Edu. And to be honest, he wouldn't have been an Edu signing anyway. Let's be honest, he would have been a Sirianos recommendation, because he'd been exactly fell into the categories of the type of players he'd signed. So, but I do sense he may be one who goes out on loan and maybe gets some fitness in January and then comes back in pre-season, where Wood will then be into his last year. I mean, is this Tyro's last year now, or has he got another year?
I think he's on a 4-year deal. So it probably is his last year.
Well, last year or last 18 months, I say, and it ain't going to be long term as well for Forest, in my opinion. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him play against Malmo, I'd say, because that's a game I'm looking at where really on paper I think that's an easier game than Graz at home. We're good, they're not going to have the ultra section behind them, are they? We're looking to win that game, really. They're really disappointed if we don't. So I'm hoping he gets some minutes in that, and probably a start, really. But I'm hoping. I hold hope for him, but I just think he might be one who's just caught in the crossfire, like I said, and he might be someone who just might not fit on the darts. But we'll see with him. I mean, I saw a bit of a clip of the bench cam earlier, and he just looks disheartened by it all, I'd say. And you're going to be, aren't you? He's come in and he's probably thinking, Chris Wood's, as well as he did last season, he's aging. We all said last season there was times when Chris Wood needed to be taken out just because of his body and his age, and we need someone else come in. We've signed Igor Jesus, who's coming from South America, who's not a frequent scorer, let's be honest. So he's probably thinking, well, I've scored more in Europe than him. And at the time, Tyro was, looking, he was on the scrap heap, wasn't he? Let's be honest. So he's probably coming in and thinking, well, I could come in here and be second choice, minimum, really, striker, and he's 4th choice. So he's probably really disheartened by it all. And to be honest, he might be in his agency like, look, just get me out of here and get me some football, because I'm not getting many minutes at all. But I hope that isn't the case and that he'll get a start against Malmo.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Hopefully that is the case, and if he does get a start against Malmo, he could kick on. I think, he's also been a case of like, what if? I mean, goal ruled out at Swansea, probably could have stood. With
their man should have been sent off.
Yeah, could have got a penalty.
Yeah.
If that happens, suddenly it's like,
he's off and running, isn't he? Yeah, so, he's off and running. Yeah, it's just, it is. God, we've had so many of these players before, haven't we? What if kind of things, but. Yeah, we'll have to see with Callum Owendo.
Very much so. But lastly, by no means least, Reiss and Red Igor Jesus, who is the club's top scorer so far, actually, with 5 goals, but none of them in the Premier League, funny enough. 3 in the Europa League and 2 in the Carabao Cup. However, despite that, I think that his all-round game has endeared himself to supporters. Obviously, celebration, they all quite like his Dragon Ball Z thingy. But yeah, obviously for 10 million, how have you sort of found him so far? He's been a pretty astute buy, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I think he's very much a poacher striker, isn't he? As we've seen by all his goals, 6 yards out, most of them, if that. 2 tap-ins Swansea, penalty against Porto, header against Betis, and tap-in against Betis. So, yeah, they've all been in the box, haven't they? Very Ruud van Nistelrooy-like from the olden days was like that. Yeah, I mean, he puts himself about, he's 100%. You know what you're going to kind of get from him. You're just going to get sheer work rate, aren't you? I feel for him in a little bit in the Premier League because I don't think he's had much chances in terms of put on a plate for him. I can't think a chance in the Premier League he's missed really, where I think, oh God, he should have scored that. There was one against United where Savona made that superb overlap and he was running into the box and all Savona needed to do was cross it and he took a heavy touch and Dillick come across, I think it was, or Yarrow. He was unlucky really with it. I know Undoy would have been offside, but he was a bit unlucky with the deflection effort on Sunday. So yeah, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him get players closer to him and create some more chances. And that is something I've noticed in the diets that we have got more midfielders crashing the box. You would have noticed it against Leeds because we've had Sangare score, who's a CDM. Dominguez was in the box for that chance as well at the near post, and then obviously Gibbs White's scored 2 headers in the last 2 Premier League games. So we've got more midfielders crashing the box, which is what we need. And we need players up closer to him because there is times when he'll win a flick on and no one's there. And then the defence just mop it up. So I think what I've seen so far of him for 10 million quid, I think he's probably definitely near the top of the list, isn't he, success-wise for sure, Jesus?
Alex, what about yourself?
He's top of. I think he's been our most successful summer signing. I think for what we've got out of him so far, he's given us sort of that memorable night in Graz. Graz, bloody hell, that was
memorable.
not memorable.
God,
I wish it was, mate.
I wasn't even there.
It was for his own reasons.
Memorable night in Seville, and then obviously he really just needs that Premier League goal. He hit the post against Palace, he hit the post and the bar against, was it Sunderland?
Chelsea.
Chelsea, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
He just needs that one chance. You just know it's going to be a horribly scabby chance where it falls to him 2 yards out and he pokes it in. But hopefully that really sort of presses him on, because for me, he's been our best summer signing. For the price we paid as well, he looks sort of every bit of 10 million quid. He was instrumental in the first goal against Leeds on Saturday. I highlighted that on Twitter. He always seems to win first contact against centre-backs, despite him only being sort of 5'11", 6 foot. But yeah, I think there's lots more to come from him, but I've been overly very happy with what he's contributed so far.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, it just seems like, I think he only got 8 league goals last season for Botafogo, but he just seems like he brings so much more to the team, even when he's not scoring. I think that's the thing. Like, that's probably what goes against Kenny Mwendo, who is more, you think, like slipping behind sort of player who can run on rather than link things up. Whereas Jesus does link things up. He does get do the dirty work. He does like throw his body around, get stuck in. Dyche was absolutely raving about him after that Porto game. He must have thought like, okay, fair enough. It's not Chris Wood. We'll see what this guy can do. And he must have been like, bloody hell, like it was hugely impressive. Like even against
it's the Brazilian Ashley Barnes. That's why.
Yeah. But he was obviously winning headers and stuff like that. Like you said, you don't expect him to win them, but he does. He finds a way. He battles. Against United, I thought very tough, difficult task. Up against 3 centre halves. 2 of them obviously Dillick and Yoro extremely tall, and yeah, he was still finding a way to. I think he only won 1 out of his 3 duels that day in the air, but I was expecting him to win none.
I compared him in the summer, didn't I, when Nathan was on the pod and he agreed to Roberto Firmino, where he's like, he wasn't a frequent scorer for Liverpool, but that front 3 they had of Mane, him and Salah were just, as a unit, one of the best in the Premier League, if not the best. And that's what I'm saying about getting players closer to Jesus, where they can feed off them. Because at times, like I said, he'll flick balls on, etc., and nobody's there. So, if you can have a cohesive unit, it might not get the goals what you might want as a central striker like a Wood did, but if you get him, say, Gibbs White's getting nearly double figures, your left winger's getting nearly double figures, your right winger's getting nearly double figures, and he's getting nearly double figures. You're spreading it across the team more rather than relying on one person like we did kind of last season, didn't we, really, if we would?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's I've been very impressed with him so far, and I might continue. Yeah, well, that's all 13 of them. I'm pretty sure. Thank you, boys, for going through those. We'll have a few other bits and bobs for you over the international break to keep you tidying over of all things Forest, and then it's all when we look ahead to visit to Anfield's after the international break. It's pretty rough actually come out to, but hey, you never know. We won there last year.
Year was after an international break, and
exactly,
that went quite well, as Alex has got the shirt on as well.
I think as well, like Slot's basically been telling the whole world how to play against Liverpool as well, and that's exactly the way Dykes is going to rock up and play. So
I think everyone's targeting that right side at the minute, aren't they, with Bradley and Salah, because Salah obviously won't defend, which is good for us because he'll probably look at Forest and think, well, I won't need to defend against them. And Conor Bradley, as we saw when Hudson-Odoi cut him inside last year, he's a little bit ropey, so he'll probably score.
Yeah, I'm not bowled over by Bradley. Yeah, I mean it's quite telling that they've sort of. I know obviously they had a few little spats last week when they played when Real Madrid came into town, but I've noticed a few of their fans actually realise what Trent's tried to bring to their team in comparison to what Bradley does, and such is life. But we'll have a few bits and pieces for you to keep you ticking over again. And thanks again for listening. So like and subscribe, do all the usual stuff. But until then, come on, you Reds.